Hey everyone, how's it going? So if you've just subscribed to this channel, welcome. And if you've been here for a while, thanks a lot for all the support. I kind of wanted to do a little video today about basically how I became full-time freelance videographer. And I've created for some great brands in my time, like Akai, Virgin Atlantic, Eurostar, Rode, just quite a lot of brands actually. I've been really fortunate. So I kind of just wanted to share my, my path. And I don't think it's a path that can necessarily be replicated because I've been doing this for a long time, over 10 years, maybe about 15 or so. And it's a very personal journey to me. I think there's lessons though I can still share with you that have got me work, because I'm not gonna lie, every day is still, I wouldn't say I've like cracked the code to building a business. I think business is very much up and down, and every level has different challenges. So you can never really say, I don't believe you can ever really say, oh, I've made it kind of thing. Like maybe you can, and maybe some people when they hit their own personal goals, they would. You're always gonna have up and down challenges. And maybe as a freelancer, you're always gonna be kind of freelance, right? You're always gonna be looking for work, but these are just things I've found that work for me. So let's go back a bit. I know I said about 15 years, but it's probably more closer to about 12 or 13 I've been doing videography for. I originally started off because I was working in a centre for adults with special needs. I hadn't really done any editing or video before that. And then they had a drama group that I kind of like started to run, and they had a camera in one of the drawers. So one of my colleagues said to me, why don't you make a little video in the drama group? So I was like, all right, that sounds fun. So we made a couple of music videos, and I went home that night and I just downloaded a kind of free software on my sister's laptop and just started editing. And I think I was quite fortunate because I was really into films and I'd watched a lot as a kid, that I kind of just picked up how to edit, or maybe even just like how shots should kind of just look. I had a natural kind of eye for it. And I edited something like pretty good, pretty quickly. And I think from there, I just kind of fell in love with it, started creating way more content with this in this drama class, and started making promo video for the center. And it kind of just, just kind of like, and I just kind of really like fell in love with kind of creating and filmmaking from there. I really wanted to get into kind of filmmaking after that. So I decided to try and do some running and a few other things kind of behind the scenes on film sets. I had a lot of friends who were also trying to make it in acting and those kind of various industries. So I started to help them with show reels and other things. And I just kind of like, straight away just kind of like started helping people where I could. My stuff wasn't very good at all though at this point. I think some people will say maybe it is, but for me personally, like looking back on the work now, like obviously I had like tiny camcorders and I didn't know really what I was doing. So, it was very much beginning level work. Before I started to work with adults with special needs, I was actually studying music. Because I bought a laptop to make films on, I also decided to download some music editing software and started to kind of make a few tunes again, and decided to try and pursue that full time. So I left care work and kind of relied heavily on videography and music to try and make a bit of money. This was definitely really hard times, not much money coming in, and I wasn't pitching very hard for work. I kind of just focusing on making music a lot of the time, and I was just picking up work like I was a delivery guy. I started doing like a bit of arboriculture and gardening work, just anything I could just to try and get by and have a bit of money. As I mentioned, I was really broke at this point. But I was kind of really determined to kind of pursue music, so I just carried on going as much as possible. So after quite a few years of this, one of my cousins running a business selling like alcoholic mixers said, oh, will you come in and basically document like behind the scenes of my business just a couple of days a week? And this was a huge help for me, because I basically now was, doing video full time, or not full time, but part time, but I could live off that money. It was a huge weight off of my kind of like worrying about where money was ever going to come from. And I was creating videos pretty much now as a professional videographer, getting paid to do it. So this was a huge step up. Before this, actually, I heard about a place called Talyard, which is a studio complex in London. It's one of the biggest kind of studio complexes, I think, in the world, or at least in Europe. So they had a lot of people there, like Mark Ronson used to be there, and The Prodigy, and I think Jason Status, like Noel Gallagher's kind of around there now. So at the time of finding out about this, I just was like really hanging around because I just wanted to be there all the time. I know this was just part of my path to getting into the music industry, was I just had to be there. So I was hanging around there for literally like a year and a half in the coffee shop. They had a coffee shop there, so I was just hanging around there, trying to network in and trying to get a job around there. And I was able to do this because obviously I was working part-time for this other company. After enough persistence, one of the bosses of the educational center there, because they had like an educational department that I was doing MAs, decided to give me a chance doing like a little internship. So I had to apply for that, and it was a paid position. Unfortunately, I actually didn't get it But I kind of called the manager up at the time, and they'd gone through all my references and everything. But I called the manager up at the time and I was like, listen, I just would not take no for an answer. I was like, look, I'll come down there. I just make videos for you. You don't even have to pay me. I just kind of want to be there. So I was there for 3 months, just kind of creating videos for them. And then eventually they decided to take me on full time. So this was another huge step up, because now it's basically there, 4 days a week, 8 hours a day, just creating video full time for this huge studio complex. And I'm not gonna lie, my imposter syndrome was through the roof at this point. I think like every day on the way in, I was just like anxiety, like insane amount of anxiety, like how the hell have I blagged my way into this position? Just did not feel good enough to be there. It was really, really stressful time in a way. I just kept feeling like I had to prove myself all the time. But this is where I think things really did definitely take a turn for me in terms of becoming a lot better. If someone's paying you 8 hours a day just to sit there at a desk and create, and I learned to color grade and everything, like, first of all, there's that pressure of having to just keep doing, like providing that content for the client. And second of all, it's, there's a certain standard that you have to hit as well to like being in a place like that. And also you just got the time to like experiment. If I had a job somewhere else, like doing gardening still, and then I was trying to just create videos in the night, then I'd only have a small amount of time to create, right? Whereas if you've got all day just to sit there at a desk and just create, you kind of start learning what works, what doesn't work. So this was just a vital part for me to becoming, pretty good, pretty quick. Well, I say pretty quick, but I had this job for about 5 years almost. So just sitting there at a desk for, 5 years, just kind of editing was priceless in a way. But anyway, things moved on and I wasn't really trying to make it in the music industry anymore. I tried to start a few other businesses and I took on a bunch of mentors who were teaching me kind of marketing and sales techniques, like going on LinkedIn and finding people on LinkedIn, jumping in their DMs, starting a conversation and trying to sell them direct. Even though those businesses failed, this was a great learning lesson for me, that after those businesses failed, I kind of just really needed to start getting more cash in, as I was renting quite a good place at this point and I needed to get money. So I decided to really lean on my video and editing skills. And I was trying to just pitch to people on LinkedIn if they needed content created for their businesses, like marketing managers and bosses and stuff. And after that, I was like, you know what, I might as well just lean on this, So I decided to try and start a video production company, and I asked this place, Tile Yard, if they would be my first clients or if I could start working for them as a retainer instead of days per week, which they agreed on, because I kind of proposed to them that, they were paying me on a day rate. I was still a freelancer by this point, by the way. I was just a registered freelancer. So I'd been a freelancer since 2015. I basically showed them how much content I was roughly banging out for them a month. And I showed them how I could carry on doing that, but at a kind of fixed rate. And they agreed on this. So it basically freed up loads of my time. I wasn't having to sit there for 8 hours and out at a desk. And because I could edit really quick, I could bang out the same amount of content literally for, hardly any time. But they were still kind of happy because they were getting good content still from me. It also meant that because I was going to potentially get more clients, I decided to invest in a lot more equipment, which meant they were getting a lot more equipment, which means they were getting a lot higher equipment as well for the same price. It felt like a real win-win. And it did actually make my video production a lot better, because I was really, really, like I said, investing in new equipment and really trying to get so much better at this point, because I knew now as well that I'd be pitching for the same jobs as other bigger video production companies. And I felt a bit like, once again, imposter syndrome kicked in. Why would they go for me rather than these other video production companies? So I had to like compete, and I really felt like I had to step up. But anyway, I was jumping on LinkedIn almost every day, adding like 20 people, those who accepted, just DMing them, trying to have conversations. It wasn't until 4 months of really, really going in on this though that I landed my first job. And it actually didn't come through LinkedIn. It was actually, they found me through a recommendation of someone at Tile Yard. And I think it charged them like £400 for the day, which at the time just felt massive to me, because it was like, wow, £400 a day just to create video. Like, that's just crazy, because it's something I could just do so easy by this point after sitting there all day and just creating. So it was a huge step up for me. And it kind of just snowballed from there, to be honest, just one job after another, because I had Tile Yard still there and I was just doing so many jobs for them still, really. Like any excuse just to pick up my camera and shoot something awesome. And they were really loving a lot of the content I was coming out with by this point. And I started getting in with other companies like Two Tribes, the beer brewery, which were getting really big at the time. This is why I do feel like my path is very lucky, because, it was really Tile Yard that kind of helped me boost up. If I didn't get my foot in the door with them, then maybe a lot of work, well, I say maybe, I know a lot of work would not have come, and it's still coming now through my connection through there. It was also because leaving there, I had an amazing portfolio because I had worked with a lot of really great people while being in Tileyard. So, you know, there were people in my portfolio that were really big that I could then kind of show off to people when I was pitching to jobs. So that was a really lucky break for me. Although, as I mentioned, the kind of road never stops, still up and down at times, and I'm always looking for the best way to do things. Last year was pretty difficult, actually. I went away traveling for a while, came back, and it just, you know, a lot of work seemed to just dry up. And I took on a few more mentors that I had like been with, you know, some of the guys were the first guys I've been with a few years back, and a few others. And, you know, they were telling me a lot of things like cold calls and cold emails, and I tried a lot of that. Unfortunately, it just didn't work for me though, which, you know, it did obviously for them. That's why they were telling me to do it. But for me, it just didn't work. The only thing that really consistently been doing work for me is actually creating content on Instagram and TikTok. And I think if you are trying to make it as a videographer, there's no reason not to do that. You know, if you're like a dentist and then you're trying to create content, I can understand why it might be a bit hard to do that because you don't really understand anything about video and editing. You're trying to create a whole new skill. Whereas nowadays, you know, creating content on socials, especially for yourself and really building a personal brand, there's no excuse for not doing that as a videographer. That for me has and still does just bring a lot of work. Another piece of advice I would give is really just try and make your work as good as possible. I personally don't really believe in niching down, especially not in the beginning. Maybe you're gonna find an industry that you enjoy more and then you wanna kind of niche down because it feels quite natural, fair enough. But I think a lot of people are not very good and they use niching down as an excuse to just kind of lessen the competition. This maybe is a bit of a controversial thought, and I know a lot of people out there say niche down, but my experience with it is, for instance, I know this big dental company that are doing marketing and content creation for a dental company, and their work's all right, but it's not amazing. I've seen a lot of other videographers make a lot better stuff. And I've been taken on by dentists, and I didn't have any dentistry in my profile, but because I was just creating good content, people appreciated that, and they came and just asked me to create dental content. And personally, I feel my content was much better than these other companies that have been working in that niche, if I do say so myself. Just because I try to be as good as possible. There's no replacement for good work, and I do think that good work does shine. As long as it's put in front of the right people, they've got the right budget for it, they'll probably go with you over someone else if your work is better. That's just my personal experience, but a lot of people might disagree with that. So if you're out there and you want to become a full-time videographer, what I'd say is just start creating your own social media content and make it damn good. You know, do a couple of free shoots if you have to for clients and just like get so good at what you do. Honestly, it will make you last longer as well. You know, there's only so many clients you can work for that you'll do a bad job for. You know, if you are just smashing it in what you're doing all the time and your clients love your work, then they're gonna come back. Because actually a lot of my work comes from word of mouth. And I wouldn't recommend this, just relying on this. It can make you pretty unstable with when work comes in. But if a lot of people are recommending you, that means your work is good. And as mentioned, there's just no replacement for that. You know, you want a client to be walking away super happy, tell people about you, you know, and also they put their video on a website somewhere, and then like that is shining and people are like, wow, how you know, who made this? So definitely just make sure you're good and you're creating your own content, building out that personal brand, and you should be good to go. But anyway, thanks for watching. I know I'm not really a business mentor. There's a lot of people out there who, like I said, you know, they'll tell you to go out there and do cold calls and emails and so many things to your clients. I don't know, personally that stuff doesn't work for me. So if you're watching this video, try and understand techniques like that. I'm definitely not your guy. You know, for me, as I mentioned, I really just built this up over time and like a lot of luck, a lot of hard work, and it just come from that really. But hopefully this will inspire you to do the same. So thanks a lot, please like, please subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.